And we are live. What is up? K the Woofy. K the Woofy. Hey Leslie Ann, how's it going? Nikki, good evening. Hey Patrick. Hey Cupie. Welcome to the stream. How's your guys' days going? What's up, Scarabite? Scarabite 27. Hey Streety. This is next week. Next week is Thanksgiving. How many of you guys are going to meet with family on Thanksgiving? Answer carefully. All right. Yeah, I hope not. So usually I meet. So I live near my family, like my extended family. So usually on holidays like Thanksgiving, we get together and we get into a big family thing. With lots of food and lots of talking and stuff. So it's really fun on the holidays. But not this year, unfortunately. Yep, we're not meeting this year. I'm just going to my parents' place. We'll have a small dinner together. Yeah, and I visit. They're very close, so I visit them all the time. So it's not a big thing. Yeah, unfortunately, with the pandemic, there's nothing going on. So, what is up? Hey, hey, Katie. You're doing drawing? Awesome. I love fellow artists. It's going good. You're going to sleep soon? Okay, awesome. Thanks. I'm not yep, just you and your mom? Yep. Small this time. Staying home. Yeah. Dinner is canceled. The other one will probably be rescheduled. I hope you're out at the fire pit with your mochi and milk tea. That sounds awesome. Yeah, well, it looks like the vaccine will be ready next year. I don't know if we'll get it. I think it'll be probably the end of next year that the general public gets access to the vaccines. Unfortunately, yeah. Hopefully next year on the holidays next year will be good, but we don't know, right? You don't you don't have Thanksgiving. Oh no. What's up, Orava? Hey, Kuwabara. Kuwabara. What is that? All right, I have some food. I have this. If anyone reads Japanese, just read it to me. This is a Japanese baked rice or rice crackers. Kobashi shoyu no okoge senbei. Let's see how this tastes. I don't even know what this is. What is it supposed to taste like? Thanks, Cell2A Jr. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving too. Oh, okay. See it? Come on, camera. Let's see what this tastes like. Not bad. A little savory. And a little salty. It's a rice cracker. It's pretty good. It's seaweed and soy sauce flavored. Okay. The long hair looks good. Keep it growing. Really? I don't think I look good with long hair. This is a little bit too long. Haven't had a haircut in like a month, I think. Well, you wanted me to have the haircut, like the hair down here, right? To my shoulders? Come on. That is too long. I don't want to look like Asian Jesus. It is very crunchy. Hey, Willa. Yeah, you didn't realize how hungry you were? Well, get some snacks, because I'll be reading. It'll be like, what, an hour or two? Let the top keep growing. But keep it growing. You're in the keep it growing crowd. Why? Long hair looks good. Look at all the boys in wuxia shows. Well, if I can fly around and do some chi and sword fighting, then maybe I'll do that. Like long up here? Have it like standing up or something? I feel like that'll take a lot of work to maintain. I like it the way it is now. Or I like it shorter. Anyways. Anywho. Thanks for the super chat, Empress Mermaid. She says, get a haircut, hippie. Oh, I think the super chat overrules you, all you guys on the long hair side. She wants me to get a haircut. Pocky needs to sponsor this channel. I think I have another Pocky somewhere. Okay, guys. So let's do a recap of what happened last week. Okay, in the story, in our little story. So last week, Ling Hu Chong, our fearless hero, paralyzed his friend Lu Dayo, because remember Lu Dayo was reading from this manual from his from the school called The Divine Art of Violet Twilight, and it's this qigong manual that's supposed to teach you this really good qi kung fu from the Huashan Sword School. And Ling Hu Chong's younger apprentice sister actually stole it from their master to give it to him so that he can train, because you remember he was dying, right? He needed so he was dying, and he had like these 6 energy streams going around his body, because the Peach Valley 6 fairies were trying to cure him, and they injected their energy streams into him, but it's all chaotic, right? So if he trained with this kung fu, then he may be able to cure himself. So she stole it, and then Lu Dayo was reading it to him, and he was like, no, stop reading it to me. I don't want to break the school rules, okay? Because he was not supposed to read that book. So he paralyzes Lu Dayo, and then he walks out of there. He runs out of there, and as he walks out, and he walks around for a while, he finds Tian Bo Guang, and this guy was dying, right? Because remember, he was poisoned by someone we don't know yet. So, and then they start talking, and then they both were going to die, so they swore to be friends, because Tian Bo Guang seemed to be an honest guy, and Ling Hu Chong liked that. So he befriended Tian Bo Guang, right? Because he figured, we're gonna die anyways, what does it matter? And then we find out that Yilin returns, and then she returns with this monk called Monk No Commandment, who turns out to be her dad. Okay, and the reason he's named Monk No Commandment is that he is a monk that follows no rules, right? So if you're a Buddhist monk, you have a lot of rules, like you can't eat meat, you can't drink wine, you can't gamble, and all that stuff. This is Monk No Commandment, so even though he's a monk, he doesn't follow any of those rules. And he's this big guy, big strong dude. And turns out that he's the father of Yilin, and his wife is also a nun. Okay, which is very weird. Nuns are not supposed to be married to monks, but well, I guess they're not married, but monks and nuns are not supposed to have children together, but apparently they do. And this guy became a monk because he wanted to chase after Yilin's mother, who was a nun. Okay, and he figured, hey, I'm a monk, she's a nun. Things. That's just how things are, right? Monks are supposed to marry nuns. I don't know why he thought that. So yeah, that's why her dad is a monk and her mother is a nun. So he's super strong and he tries to cure Ling Huchong, right, by injecting 2 of his own energy streams into Ling Huchong's body to suppress those 6 energy streams that were already in his body. And he does this, and after like a whole night of just trying to cure him, Ling Huchong feels better. Okay, he feels better. And at that point, the master and Lingshan arrive. Okay, his master and Lingshan, his little sister, arrives, and the master tells him to kill Tianpo Guang because Tianpo Guang is it's a criminal, and Ling Huchong just befriended him, so he can't really kill his friend. So he pretends to fall and he stabs himself in the leg, right, to prevent himself, so that he can get out of. So he has an excuse to not kill Tianpo Guang. So, and then the master gets mad, and the master throws the sword at Tianpo Guang, hoping to kill him. But then the monk no commandments, blocks the sword and he saves Tianpo Guang. And then they all leave. Bo Guang leaves, Yilin and the monk leave. And the master, we left with the master, Ling Huchong, and the little sister. And the master is disappointed in his disciple because his disciple refused to kill a criminal. But then he asks, where is the manual? Where is that Divine Art of Violet Twilight manual? And that's where we end. There's a recap. How is that? Let's see. Last week's chapter was epic. It was. It was pretty cool. So we start with the next chapter. All right, chapter 12, Assassins, part 2. Ling Huchong had guessed that master and little apprentice sister must have come back because the crime was discovered and the criminal identified. And that was why master came back to Mount Huashan after the book. And that was exactly what he had wished for. So it looks like the master discovered that his daughter stole the book. And now he's coming back to find the book. Sixth apprentice brother has it. Little apprentice sister only did it to save my life. Her intention was all good. Master, please don't blame her. Without master's permission, I would never dare to even touch the manuscript, not mentioning reading about any formula or technique off the booklet. Ling Huchong swore. Yue Buchun's face immediately turned into a smile, kind and pleasant. You did it right. It's not that I don't want to pass it on to you, but since our school is facing some serious events at the time, and I could not spare any moments to give you detailed instructions, if I just let you study by yourself, I am afraid that you might go the wrong way, and that would lead to unpredictable trouble. He paused for a while and then continued, That monk no commandment acted like a lunatic, but he does have brilliant inner energy techniques. Did he dissolve those 6 unorthodox energy streams inside you? How do you feel right now? I don't feel nauseated anymore, and all the burning pain and freezing pain are gone too. but it feels like I've run all my strength out, Ling Huchong answered. You have just recovered from severe internal injuries. It's natural that you feel weak. We have to repay Great Master No Commandment for saving your life one day, Yue Buchun said. Yes, Master. Ever since Yue Buchun came back to Mount Huashan, he worried that they might meet the Peach Valley Six Fairies again. But so far, he had seen no trace of them, which relaxed him a bit. But he still didn't want to stay long. Let's meet with Dayo, and then go to Mount Songshan together. Chong, do you think you are fit to make a long journey? He asked. Yes, I am, yes, Ling Huchong replied with sheer joy. Soon the master and the two apprentices arrived at the little hut next to the House of Integrity. Yue Lingshan rushed forward with a trot and entered the hut after pushing the door open. Suddenly, she started screaming, her voice filled with terror. Yue Buchun and Ling Huchong both dashed forward to look inside, and they saw Lu Dayo lying on the floor, motionless. Little princess sister, don't be frightened. I sealed his pressure points earlier, Ling Huchong explained with a smile. You sure scared the wits out of me. Why did you seal his pressure points? Yue Lingshan asked. Since I refused to read the manuscript for my own good, he decided to read the scripts in the manuscript for me, to listen, Ling Huchong explained. I couldn't convince him, so I had to seal his pressure points. How come? Suddenly, Yue Buchun uttered a cry of surprise. He bent down to check on Lu Dayo's breathing, and also checked his pulses before speaking in shock. How come he is dead? Chong, which pressure point did you seal? Hearing the sudden news that Lu Dayo was dead, Ling Huchong was scared out of his wits. His body started shaking and he almost fainted. He muttered in a trembling voice as he reached out to touch Lu Dayo's face. The face was chilling cold. Apparently, Lu Dayo died a long while back. Tears burst out from his eyes. Sixth apprentice brother? Are you really gone? He cried. Where's the booklet? Yue Buchun asked. Ling Huchong looked with his teary eyes, and in the blur, he didn't see the Violet Twilight manuscript either. Where's the booklet? He couldn't help but ask himself. He checked Lu Dayo's pockets in a hurry, but there's no trace of the manuscript. When I sealed his pressure points, I remember seeing the manuscript turned open on the desk. How come it's not there anymore? Dun dun dun. Uh-oh. He died. So Lu Dayo was his best friend, by the way, who just apparently died, and we don't know why. I think we have a sound effect for this. Yue Lingshan looked all over the room, on the bed, next to the desk, behind the door, and under the chairs, but still, there was no trace of the Violet Twilight manuscript whatsoever. This manuscript was the ultimate Kung Fu manuscript of the Huashan Sword School. Now, when it suddenly disappeared, Yue Buchun was utterly apprehensive. He examined the corpse of Lu Dayo carefully, but found no fatal wound. He examined around the little hut, including the top of the roof, but found no traces left by any outsiders. If no outsiders had come, then it couldn't have been the Peach Valley's Six Fairies, or the monk No Commandment who took it, Yue Buchun thought aloud. He asked Ling Huchong with a stern voice, Chong, which pressure point did you seal? Ling Huchong knelt down in front of his master. I was afraid that I did not have much strength with my fingers. That's why I sealed the vital pressure point, Tanzhong point. I had no clue that it would have killed Sixth Apprentice brother accidentally. He extended his arm and drew the long sword by Lu Dayo's waist quickly, and without hesitation slashed it toward his own neck. So the Tanzhong point is in the middle of the chest, and apparently it's a very critical pressure point. So normally it's a it's a point that causes serious injury, but since Ling Huchong was already weak, he figured he should use that point because he didn't have enough energy. You got here to know why the fuck did he die. We don't know if we don't know why he died yet, Freddy. So you didn't miss much. Yuebuchun flicked his finger, which sent the long sword flying far. Even if you want to die, you'll have to find the Violet Twilight manuscript first. Where on earth did you hide the manuscript? Ling Huchong felt a chill in his heart. He thought to himself, Master is actually suspecting that I hid the Violet Twilight manuscript. He dazed for a moment and then spoke again. Master, someone must have stolen the manuscript. I will chase it back at all costs and return it to you, Master, not even leaving one page behind. If someone makes a copy or memorizes the entire thing, then even if we get the manuscript back intact, the high-level kung fu of our Huashan sword school would no longer be the ultimate unique technique. Yuebuchun's mind was as confused as a tangled skein. After a short pause, he said to Ling Huchong with a gentle tone, Chong, if you took the manuscript, as long as you give it back, I won't blame you. Staring at the corpse of Lu Daiyo blankly, Ling Huchong said loudly, Master, I swear with all my heart, if there are people who peeped at the Violet Twilight manuscript, then I will kill all of them. If there are 10 of them, I will kill all 10. And if there are 100 of them, I will kill all 100. If Master still thinks that it was I who stole it, please, kill me now. I have no complaints. Get up. You said it wasn't you, then I believe you. Yuebuchun shook his head. You are very good friends with Daiyo. Of course, you would never kill him intentionally. Then, who on earth stole the manuscript? He stared outside of the window, blankly, lost in thought. What do you guys think happened? Father, it's all my fault. I thought I did a great thing by stealing Father's manuscript. Who would have thought that Big Apprentice Brother would refuse to read it, and Sixth Apprentice Brother would lose his life because of it? I will find the manuscript back, no matter what, Yue Lingshan exclaimed in a sobbing voice. Let's look around one more time, Yuebuchun said. The three searched every bit of space in the small hut this time, but not only didn't they find the manuscript, nor could they find any trace or clue. We should not spread the news. I will tell your mother about it, and other than that, don't mention this to anybody else. Let's bury Daiyo, and then head down the mountain, Yuebuchun said to his daughter. Looking at the face of Lu Daiyo's dead body, Ling Huchong couldn't help feeling sad. He thought to himself, among all the apprentice brothers, Sixth Apprentice Brother was the best friend of all, but I was actually the one who killed him by accident. I had never seen that coming at all. Even if I weren't wounded, such a poke shouldn't have gotten him killed. Could it be that because I had the Peach Valley Six Fairies' unorthodox energy inside me, therefore the strength of the poke was somehow different? Oh, maybe. Maybe, right? He had that different energy inside him. Maybe since they're so powerful, maybe he actually killed him. Even if that were true, why did the Violet Twilight manuscript disappear all of a sudden? Alas, I really can't figure this out. Master is suspecting me of stealing the manuscript. It's useless to plead my innocence. I must find out the truth about this no matter what I have to do. By then, I can cut my own throat to apologize to Sixth Apprentice Brother. Not gonna lie, my girl voice is so soothing. You're just saying that. One of these days, I'll practice the female voice and I'll perfect it. Okay? I'll sound like an actual girl. And then I will control the world. We will take over the world. Wiping off his tears with his sleeve, Ling Huchong found a hoe and worked on digging. Sorry. Ling Huchong found a hoe and worked on digging a grave to bury Lu Daiyo's corpse. Sweat streamed down all over his body as he dug with all his strength, while panting heavily. Only with the help of Yue Lingshan by the side, he was able to finish building the grave. Sometime later, the trio arrived at the White Horse Temple. Seeing that Ling Huchong had escaped death and had come back together, Madame Yue felt unspeakable joy. After Yue Buchun told her on the quiet about Lu Dayo's death and the disappearance of the Violet Twilight manuscript, Madame Yue shed more tears of grievance. Although it was an important matter that the Violet Twilight manuscript got lost, in her mind, since her husband had mastered the Kung Fu, it didn't matter if he still had the manuscript or not. But Lu Dayo had been an apprentice in the Huashan school for many years, and he was genuinely a friendly and good fellow. Oh, so sad. So of course it was very sad to learn about his tragic death. The many apprentices had no clue. So after seeing the gloomy look on master wife, big apprentice brother, and little apprentice sister's faces, none dared to make any loud noise. Willa says Tianbo Guang is quite fast and unscrupulous. Perhaps he is responsible. That is a theory. That is one theory. But remember, Tianbo Guang was hurt, right? Do you think he was kidding about being hurt? I think he was actually hurt though, because he could barely stand up when we saw him last. That is one theory though. Yue Buchun ordered Lao Denois to hire 2 wagons, one for Madame Yue and Yue Lingshan, the other for Ling Huchong to rest in, and the group resumed the trip east toward Mount Songshan. Oh no, on no particular day, they arrived at the town of Weilin. It was close to dusk already. There was only one inn in the entire town, and it was already full. Since there were quite a few females in the Huashan group, it was too troublesome to stay overnight at any local residence. Let's keep going. We should be able to find lodging in the next town, Yue Buchun told everyone. But only 1 mile into the trip, the wagon Madame Yue sat in broke down with a broken axle. Having no other choice, Madame Yue and Yue Lingshan had to travel on foot. Master, there's a monastery in the woods over there. Do you think it would be a good idea if we spend the night there? Xu Daizu pointed at the northeast and suggested. But we females and they might feel it's troublesome, Madame Yue said. Daiju, why don't you go make an inquiry? If the monks in the monastery decline, then we won't. No pressure for them, Yue Buchun instructed. Xu Daizu nodded and then dashed away. Only moments later, he had run back while shouting in a distance, Master, it's a discarded monastery. There's no monk there. Everyone was quite glad to hear that. Taojun, Ying Luobai, and Shu Qi, in the bunch of younger apprentices, ran over ahead of the rest of the people. Remember, this is the entire school, okay? And they're traveling to Mount Songshan. By the time Yue Buchun, Madame Yue, and the rest of the group arrived outside of the monastery, dark clouds had piled up in the eastern side of the sky, and only moments later, the entire sky had turned dark. It's very fortunate that there's a discarded monastery here, or we would have found ourselves in the middle of a storm halfway, Madame Yue said. They entered the big hall and found a statue of a blue-faced Buddha. The statue depicted a man holding herb grass with a cape made of leaves on his shoulder. It was the Buddha of the herb, Sheng Nong, who, as legend said, tasted hundreds of herbs himself to test their medical effects. All the apprentices, led by Yue Buchun, saluted the Buddha to show their respect. Afterwards, they began to settle down, but before they even opened their bedding rolls, several lightning bolts flashed and thunder exploded. Before long, pea-sized raindrops started pouring down, splashing on the tiles on the roof. Who was the one after the other manuscript? So, yeah. So there are 2 manuscripts, right? The one, the Violet Twilight manuscript is the one from the Huashan Sword School, right? And I don't think a lot of people are after that manuscript. But I guess it's a powerful martial arts. But the one that's more powerful that everyone's after is what was it called? Oh no, what is it? What was it called? Someone remind me in the chat what it was called. But that was the manuscript from the Lin family, from Lin Pingzhi's family, and basically everyone is after that one, right? The Gandalf Buddha, a weed Buddha. That's funny. Ah, yeah, the evil resisting sword art manuscript. Thanks, Losh. So that one is from the Lin family, and everyone wants to get their hands on that one because apparently, several generations ago, the guy who created that manuscript was like the #1 martial artist in the world. The small monastery had leaks everywhere. Everyone decided not to even open his or her bedding rolls and simply found a dry spot to sit down. Gao Genming, Liang Fa, and 3 other female apprentices went to prepare dinner. This year's spring season thunders are so early. It's probably going to be a year with poor harvest, Madame Yue said. Ling Huchong sat in a corner of the hall, leaning on the rack of the big bell. Rain streamed down the eaves gutter like a curtain made of water. He stared at it as he thought to himself, it would be a lot more enjoyable if 6th Apprentice brother were still alive and could chat and joke with us. Yeah, he was a joker, and I like doing his voice. Unfortunately, he's dead. During the journey, he rarely spoke to Yue Lingshan, especially when he saw her and Lin Pingzhi were together sometimes. He would intentionally avoid them and walk far away. He kept telling himself, Little Apprentice sister stole Violet Twilight manuscript for me to heal my wounds, fully knowing that Master would reproach her severely. It is obvious that she cared for me very much. I only wish that she would always be happy throughout her life. Since I am determined to commit suicide, to apologize to 6th Apprentice brother, after I find the manuscript, why would I ever provoke her again? Little Apprentice sister and Apprentice brother Lin are a perfect pair of lovers. I hope she will forget all about me, so after I die, she won't have to shed any tears. Oh, is he giving up? He's giving up on Lingshan. Even though he thought so in his head, every time he saw her and Lin Pingzhi walking abreast, chatting joyously, he simply couldn't help feel sorrow. He simply couldn't help feeling sorrow and pain in his heart. At the moment, it was raining cats and dogs outside the monastery. He watched Yue Lingshan walking about the hall, helping with preparing the meal. Each time when her eyes met Lin Pingzhi's, both would let a slight smile flash across their faces. Ah, he's doomed. He's doomed. Nope. She's gone. She's gone. Don't even... Just forget about her, Ling Huchang. Just forget about her. She's gone. You have no chance. The two of them probably thought that nobody would notice it, but not even one of the smiles escaped Ling Huchang's eyes. He's kind of creepy, right? He's just watching them the entire time. Each smile would depress Ling Huchang some more. He wanted to turn his head away, but each time when Yue Lingshan walked by, he simply couldn't resist the desire to cast a glance toward her. After dinner, everyone went to sleep. The rain kept coming down, heavy for a while and then light for another, but never ended. Ling Huchang had many things on his mind, and they kept him from falling asleep. Sounds of breathing and snorting rose one after another. Everyone else had fallen asleep. Sounds of hoofbeats suddenly rose from the southeast. There were over 10 of them, and they came closer and closer along the main road. Why are they traveling in such a hurry in the middle of the rainy night? Could it possibly be that they were after us? Ling Huchang's heart skipped a beat. He sat up and then heard Yue Buchun speak to everyone in a loud voice. Everyone, stay quiet. Moments later, the pack of horsemen cruised by the monastery. By then, everyone of Huashan's school were awake, and each had his hand next to his sword handle. Hearing that the sound of hoofbeats passed by the monastery went further and further, they all let out a breath of relief and were just about ready to go back to sleep when the sound of the hoofbeats rose again. Apparently, these riders had turned around and came back. All the horses stopped right outside of the monastery. Is Mr. Yue from the Huashan Sword School inside the monastery? We have a question to ask him. A voice shouted loud and clear. Ling Huchong was the head apprentice of the Huashan Sword School, and it had always been him who stepped forward to handle things. So he walked to the entrance of the monastery, took off the door bolt, and then opened the gate. Friends, who are you? Why have you come late at night? He asked as he looked outside. There were a total of 15 riders. They formed an arch and surrounded the gate. About 6 or 7 of them had waterproof lanterns in their hands, and they all pointed their lanterns at Ling Huchong's face. In the dark night, when 6 or 7 lanterns all pointed at one's face, then inevitably one would end up with blurry eyes. Just this one action had shown that the uninvited visitors were full of hostility. Ling Huchong opened his eyes as wide as he could, but only found that each of the 15 riders had a black hood over his head, leaving only 2 holes showing his eyes. Ling Huchong suddenly realized, either we know these people, or they are afraid that we would remember their faces. Please, have Yue Bu-chun, Mr. Yue, come out to see us, a rider on the left said. Who are you? May I have the honor to learn your name, please, so I can pass it on to my master, Ling Huchong inquired. You can save yourself some trouble by stop asking for our names. You can go tell your master this. We heard that the Huashan Sword School got hold of the evil resisting sword manuscript of the Fortune Prestige Escort House, so we just wanted to borrow it to take a look, the man responded. Told you, everyone is after that manuscript. Ling Huchong felt his anger starting to grow. The Huashan Sword School has its own set of kung fu techniques. Why would we want others' evil resisting sword manuscript? We don't have it. Even if we did have it, are you just going to take it with force? How dare you belittle the Huashan Sword School? The man burst into loud laughter. The rest of the 14 riders also began to laugh out loud. The sound of their deafening laughter swept across the deserted plain like a storm. Obviously, each and every one of them had first-class inner strength. So by the loudness of their laughs, you can tell that they're very powerful people. We've encountered a tough enemy again. Shocked inwardly, Ling Huchong thought aloud. It seemed that all 15 of them are elite fighters. I wonder who they really are. Amid the loud laughter, a man spoke. We heard that the chap Lin from the Fortune Prestige Escort House has joined the Huashan Sword School. We've always heard that gentleman sword Mr. Yue of the Huashan School had superb mastery of sword arts. Then of course he would feel beneath his dignity to pay any attention to it. We are just a bunch of nobodies in the martial world. Today we make bold to ask Mr. Yue to grant his permission and loan the book so we can have a look. The 14 others' laughter kept going like tides after tides, but this speaker's voice still sounded loud and clear, standing out clearly from all the other noises. Apparently, this one's inner strength was even stronger compared to the others. Who are you really? You, Ling Huchong said, but he couldn't even hear his own words. Astounded, he stopped talking and thought to himself, could I have lost all my inner energy, built up during the past over a dozen years? Can there have not been a single bit of it left? So apparently he's out of strength. After Ling Huchong left Mount Huashan, he had tried several times to work on his Qigong exercises, using the formula and techniques from his own school. But as soon as he started to gather his inner strength, his breathing would lose its rhythm, and various uncontrollable energy would start flowing randomly through his body. And as soon as he tried to direct the flow, nausea and dizziness would follow. It would turn so bad that if he didn't stop the breathing exercise, he would have simply passed out. He tried several times more, and always ended up with the same result. When he asked for advice from his master about it, Yue Bu-chun only cast a cold glance at him and didn't answer. At the time, Ling Huchong thought to himself, Master must have suspected that I embezzled the Violet Twilight manuscript and was practicing the techniques behind his back. There really is no need to plead innocence. After all, I won't be alive for long. Why should I trouble myself with these inner strength problems? After that incident, he stopped exercising completely. Who would have thought that when he tried to gather his strength and speak loudly, his voice would be completely buried by the enemy's laughter? Oh, Patrick, I know that song. Butterfly in the Sky. It's from Reading Rainbow. Oh, that's from a long time ago. That's quite the reference. Yebuchun's voice rose from inside the monastery, loud and clear. Now, this is a guy with strong inner energy. All of you are renowned masters in the martial world. Why have you been so modest and called yourself a bunch of nobodies? Yebuchun never tells a lie. We really don't have the evil resisting sword manuscript of the Lin family. He used the divine arts of Violet Twilight when he spoke. Although his voice was mixed with a loud laughter from all the people outside of the monastery, everyone, both inside the monastery and outside, could hear every word loud and clear. He had spoken in a very relaxed manner, no different from any ordinary conversation. It sounded a lot more natural than the way the previous man had spoke, yelling with immense strength. You say you don't have it? Then where the hell is it? Another man retorted in a croaky voice. What makes you think that you are worthy of the answer? Yebuchun mocked. Anyone in this world is worthy of an answer for things happening in this world, the man replied. Yebuchun sneered, but did not respond. Hey, Yebuchun, are you going to give it up or not? Don't you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. If you don't give it up yourself, we'll have no choice but to resort to force and go in to search ourselves, that man yelled out loud. All female apprentices stay together, back to back, and all male apprentices unsheathe your swords, Madame Yue told everyone in a whisper. Rustling sounds echoed as everyone in the monastery drew their longswords. Ling Huchong stood by the gate and reached for his longsword, but before he had enough time to draw his sword, two men had leapt off their horses and sprang at him. Ling Huchong dodged to the side and was just about to draw his sword when he heard someone yell, Get lost! Then the man raised his leg and kicked Ling Huchong hard, sending him flying in the air. Ling Huchong flew tens of feet before landing hard in a bush. He found himself in a state of complete confusion. His kick wasn't all that powerful. How come I don't have any strength with my lower body and my legs feel so light? He thought aloud. He struggled to sit up, but all of a sudden he felt as if the blood between his stomach and his chest were boiling hot, while 7 or 8 streams of energy circled and twisted inside him, clashing and smashing against each other. He couldn't even move a little finger of his. Ling Huchong was dumbfounded. He opened his mouth wide to scream, but nothing came out of it. It was almost as if he was under some kind of evil spell. His brain still worked perfectly, but he had become completely frozen, not able to move a single muscle. Sound of weapons clashing into each other echoed in his ears non-stop. Master, master wife, and second apprentice brother dashed out of the monastery and engaged in fights with 7 or 8 masked enemies. Several other masked men charged into the monastery. Shouts and yells came out through the gate mixed with girls' rebukes. The rain started to get heavier. Several waterproof lanterns were scattered around on the ground. The dim yellowish light flickered as reflections from blades flashed and shadows in all shapes swayed back and forth. A short while passed when suddenly a shriek from a female echoed inside the monastery. Ling Huchong became more worried. The enemy consisted of all men. Then, of course, the shriek must have been coming from an injured apprentice sister. He watched the fights outside of the monastery. Master was busy waving his sword, fighting against 4 enemies. Master wife was also engaged in a fight with 2 enemies. He knew that both his master and master wife had brilliant sword skills. Even though they were both fighting against more than one opponent, chances were that they would still be able to hold them off. Yelling at the top of his tongue, second apprentice brother Lao Dunois was also fighting against two opponents. Both opponents used long knives. From the weapon colliding sounds, Ling Huchong could tell that both of them had very strong arms. He knew that if the fight lasted longer, Lao Dunois would eventually have no chance of withstanding their powerful attacks. Seeing how fierce the fights outside of the monastery were, with 3 on his side against 8 enemies, he could easily imagine how vicious the fights would be inside. There were a good number of apprentice brothers and sisters inside the monastery, but none of them were elite fighters. Screams and cries rose one after another. Perhaps several people had been slain. The more worried he became, the harder it was to gather any strength. He could only pray inwardly. Dear heaven, please let me gain my strength back for just 1 hour. If I can get back in the monastery, I will be able to protect the little apprentice sister. Even if the enemy sliced me into 10,000 pieces or bestow upon me every kind of torture, I would be most willing to. He struggled some more and tried to work up his inner energy, but suddenly 6 streams of energy flow lashed against his chest altogether, and then 2 streams of energy flow smashed down from above and pushed the 6 streams back down. Ling Huchong felt ultimate emptiness, as if all his organs had disappeared, and all his blood and skin were also completely gone. A shiver ran through his heart as he cried inwardly, Good heavens, so that's how it is. What happened? 5-minute break, guys. I will be right back. Boop, doop, doop, doop. I am back. Oh, alright. Hope thinks it's those guys are from the demon cult. Good guess. That's a good guess. Bunch of book thieves out there. Yes, they are. You don't need a mic to sing during a concert if you have strong inner energy. That's right. That's why I never sing with a mic. I sing with my voice. Dun, 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 dun. Alright, I have boom. Chocolate rice snacks. Alright, this looks good. This looks good. The main ingredient is sugar, so we know that it's good. Let's see. Ugh. Alright, chocolate rice snacks. It feels like a Cheerio, a chocolate Cheerio. Oh no, it's puffy. Like chocolate rice puffs. That's pretty good. Oh, thanks, Cosmin, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Ah, bake the rice next. Alright, just stop eating. Alright, so it looks like Ling Huchong is out of strength. And whenever he tries to summon up his chi, his energy, he can't do it. And he starts getting dizzy and nauseated. So why is that, right? Why is that? This is pretty important, actually. By then, he finally understood. when the Peach Valley's 6 fairies tried to heal his wounds using their inner energy. They forced 6 streams of inner energy into his body through different channels and passages. That didn't do his internal wounds any good, and in addition, the 6 energy streams stayed inside him and caused even more problems. Then it just happened that he met Monk No Commandments with excellent inner strength, but also in an utterly impetuous temper that forced another 2 streams of energy flow inside of him and overwhelmed the 6 streams from the Peach Valley 6 fairies. For a short while, it looked as if his internal wounds were all healed, but the truth was that he had 2 more energy streams inside his body, which created a resistance against the existing streams inside of him, and his own inner energy from years of Qigong exercises had all perished as an end result. He had been rendered into an ordinary person who had never been trained with any martial arts. So yeah. Now, I don't know if what he's saying is true though. So he's saying that all of that qi that he cultivated from his years of martial arts it's all vanished. It's all gone, right? But I think it's because like they're being suppressed, right? They're being suppressed by these 6 streams of energy and the 2 streams of energy from the monk. So I think they're still there. They're just suppressed, so he can't use them. I don't know. But the result is that he has no chi left. So he's like an ordinary person who had not trained his chi, which sucks coming from a guy who really likes martial arts. A pain came from his heart as he thought to himself, "What a misfortune. This is as if all my martial arts skills were taken away from me. At the moment when my school is in trouble, I couldn't even help it in any way. I am the head apprentice of the Huashan Sword School, yet all I can do is to lie here on the ground and watch my master and master wife getting harassed and my apprentice brothers and sisters getting slaughtered. What a big loser am I. Fine, I'll just go die by little apprentice sisters' side." He knew that if he even attempted to gather some inner energy, which would trigger the 8 streams of energy inside him, he would end up frozen like a dead meat. So he let all inner strength flow back into his central stomach naturally and didn't try to gather any strength. And sure enough, he gained control of his 4 limbs. He stood up slowly, drew his sword in slow motion, and then moved toward the monastery in small steps. As soon as he entered the gate, a smell of blood immediately assailed him. 2 lanterns sat on the altar and lit the hall. Liang Fa, Xu Daizu, Gao Genming, and a bunch of other apprentice brothers were still fighting a bloody battle. Several apprentice brothers and sisters lay on the ground. It was hard to tell if they were still breathing. Yue Lingshan and Lin Pingzhi were in the middle of a battle abreast against a masked enemy. Yue Lingshan's long hair scattered about, and Lin Pingzhi was holding his sword in his left hand. Obviously, his right hand got injured in the battle. The masked man had a short spear in his hand and demonstrated excellent skills with his spear techniques. Lin Pingzhi had to use the move called Green Pine's Welcoming Guests 3 times in a row to parry off his fierce attacks, but the sword moves he had learned were too limited. The masked man gave his short spear a sudden shake. The red tassels on the spearhead. The red tassels on the spear spread open and blinded Lin Pingzhi's view. With a thump, the spear stabbed into Lin Pingzhi's right shoulder. Yue Lingshan launched 2 thrusts frantically and forced the enemy to take a step back. "Little Lin, go wrap up your wound. Hurry," she shouted. "It's no problem," Lin Pingzhi responded as he lunged with a thrust, but his feet were already tumbling underneath him. The masked man let out a long laugh when he swung the spear and struck Yue Lingshan in the waist with the spear handle. Yue Lingshan dropped the sword in her right hand and squatted down in pain. Ling Huchong was shocked. He dashed forward and thrust his sword forward. But the sword only went forward for about 1 foot before all the energy streams inside him clashed again. Instantly, his right arm gave out and dropped down. The masked man saw the sword coming toward him and had planned to dodge to the side and then return the attack with his spear. But after only 1 foot into the thrust, the attacker's arm had dropped down. He was a bit confused. Without thinking much, he swept his left leg and kicked Ling Huchong all the way out of the gate. Splash! Ling Huchong fell into a puddle of water outside of the monastery. The rain was still pouring down non-stop. Ling Huchong found himself unable to move with mud inside his mouth, eyes, nose, and ears. Oh no, guys, he's useless. He's useless. Can't even attack this dude. Lao de Noir was just taken down, with his pressure points sealed by the enemy. His 2 opponents now joined the other 6 to attack the Yue couple. Moments later, another 2 enemies ran out of the monastery and joined the group. Yue Buchun was now against 7, and Madame Yue against 3. Suddenly, both Madame Yue and one of her opponents cried out. Both had inflicted wounds on their legs. The injured man retreated back. Madame Yue had 1 less opponent now, but since she had just taken a heavy chop on the leg, with such a severe wound, her strength began to fade away. After exchanging some more blows, she took a hit on the shoulder from the back of the enemy's knife. That was it. She collapsed to the ground. The 2 masked men burst into loud laughter as they sealed several pressure points on Madame Yue's back. By then, the apprentices inside the monastery had all been wounded and taken down one after another. The enemies obviously had a plot. They only knocked the Huashan apprentices down or sealed their pressure points, but didn't kill any one of them. The 15 masked men surrounded Yue Buchun in a circle. 8 of them took on 8 different directions to attack Yue Buchun simultaneously, and the remaining 7 each held a waterproof lantern and aimed the light directly at Yue Buchun's eyes. Oh, that's dirty, guys. There's 15 of them. They can't even fight one dude. Like, barely. The headmaster of the Huashan Sword School had superb inner strength and brilliant sword skills, but the 8 attackers were all elite fighters as well. In addition, the 7 lanterns pointing directly at him made it very hard for him to look straight ahead. Yue Buchun knew too well that the Huashan Sword School had suffered a crushing defeat, and the entire body of the school would inevitably perish in the monastery. But he still put on a good defense by blocking all his vital parts with a shield of blade. He had resourceful inner energy and effective sword art techniques. When the lanterns were directed at him, he simply looked down. For a good while, the 8 attackers made no progress whatsoever. Yue Buchun, are you going to surrender or not? One of the masked men yelled at him. I would rather die than submit. Kill me if you want, Yue Buchun replied. If you don't surrender, I'll cut off your wife's right arm to start, the man threatened. He raised his large saber high and aimed it at Madame Yue's shoulder. The saber had a very thick back and razor-sharp blade. Reflecting the light from the lanterns, the blade shined with dark bluish flare. How can I just let him cut off junior apprentice sister's arm? Yue Buchun hesitated, but then he thought, if I threw down my sword and surrender, undoubtedly I would suffer humiliation all the same. How can I let the hundreds of years of eminence of the Huashan Sword School get ruined in my hands? He took a deep breath, and suddenly his face shined in violet color as he swung his sword at the man on his left. The man raised his knife to parry it, but Yue Buchun had attached his divine art of violet twilight with the chop. The sword carried a tremendous amount of power. The knife was knocked back. Both the sword and the knife cut into the man's right arm simultaneously and chopped 2 sections off his right arm. Blood splashed everywhere. The man uttered a loud cry and fell to the ground. Succeeding with the first move, Yue Buchun thrust his sword down swiftly. This time, the sword penetrated another enemy's left leg. That man poured out a stream of curses and retreated. Now there were 2 less opponents in the battle, but the situation wasn't any better. A heavy thump broke out as a meteor hammer smashed into Yue Buchun's back. He had to lunge 3 quick thrusts to drive the enemy's back. Barely catching his breath, he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. All the enemies cheered. Old Folk Yue is wounded. Wear him out. The 6 attackers could almost smell their victory, so they all took a step back and made the circle a bit bigger. Now Yue Buchun didn't have any chance of a surprise attack. Okay, it looks like we're in trouble. There are a total of 15 masked enemies, 3 of which had been wounded by the Yue couple. Among the 3 wounded, one had a serious injury. His arm was cut off. The other 2 only had injuries on their legs, nothing too serious, and each held a waterproof lantern and kept swearing at Yue Buchun wildly. From their accents, Yue Buchun could tell that they came from different regions. The kung fu skills they demonstrated also consisted of many different styles. Obviously, they weren't apprentices from the same school, but during the fight, they had good understanding of each other and attacked with precision and synchronization. It didn't seem that they had just ganged up together recently. Where on earth were they from? He pondered but couldn't find an answer. And the most unusual part of this whole thing was that since all 15 of them had elite fighting skills, as one with a good deal of knowledge of the martial world, he shouldn't have failed to recognize at least some of them. Yet he had no clue whatsoever. He was sure that none of these enemies had ever engaged in a fight with him before or had grudges against him. Could it be true that they came to give trouble to the Huashan Sword School because they were really after the evil resisting sword manuscript? He pondered and pondered, yet never slowing down with his hands. He used the divine art of Violet Twilight to its extreme, and the tip of his sword shined dimly. After exchanging over a dozen moves, another enemy got stabbed in the shoulder and had to drop his iron staff. One of the enemies, standing outside of the attacking circle, sprang forward and took over the attacking position. This man held a knife and with a saw-shaped blade. The knife looked very heavy, and close to the tip of the knife, the blade curved into the shape of a hook. The man tried again and again to lock Yue's sword with the hook, but Yue Buchun had plenty of inner strength. It seemed as if the longer the fight lasted, the more energetic he appeared to be. Suddenly he struck a back palm, which landed squarely on one enemy's chest and broke the man's 2 ribs. The steel cane in the man's hands was also knocked down by the shock. But the man turned out to be extremely ferocious. The great pain from his broken ribs provoked his fury. He dived down and had Yue Buchun's left leg in his arms. Astounded, Yue Buchun swung his sword and chopped down at the man's back. But 2 knives reached forward simultaneously and blocked the chop. Not able to chop down using his longsword, Yue Buchun kicked toward the enemy's head with his right foot. That man was an expert in grappling. Reaching out with his right hand, he hooked Yue Buchun's right leg as well. Then he rolled forward. Although Yue Buchun had excellent kung fu skills, he could no longer keep his balance and fell down on the ground. Instantly, knife, short spear, meteor hammer, longsword, and other various weapons all aimed right at his vital parts, just such as head, face, throat, and chest. Yue Buchun heaved a deep sigh and let go of his sword. Closing his eyes in despair, he waited for the death blow. Then he felt some heavy blows to his waist, rib cage, throat, and chest. The enemy had sealed several of his pressure points with heavy jabs. 2 masked men propped him up as an old voice spoke out. "Gentleman Sword, Mr. Yue, certainly has brilliant kung fu skills. You have a well-deserved reputation. We ganged up on you, 15 against 1, yet we were only able to subdue you after getting 4 or 5 of us wounded. That is very admirable. If I had to fight you one-on-one, I am sure I would lose to you. But when you look at it a different way, we have 15, but you have over 20 people. Your Huashan Sword School still has more bodies and better odds here. Tonight, we won the battle with few against many, and completely defeated the Huashan School. I have to say that the victory didn't come easy. What do you guys think?" "Most definitely, it wasn't an easy victory for sure," the rest of the masked men agreed in unison. "Mr. Yue," the old man continued, "we really have no grudge against you. We made bold and offended you only because we want to borrow the evil resisting sword manuscript. And check it out. This manuscript didn't belong to your Huashan school before. When you use all your ingenuity and manage to take in Linfamy's young boy from the Fortune Prestige Escort House as your apprentice, it was obvious that you were really after that sword manuscript. What you did is truly sneaky. When fellow martial friends heard about this, all were quite mad at you. I am giving you a valuable advice here. Why don't you give it up? Yebuchun was infuriated. Huh, I am already in your hands. Go ahead and give me a quick end. Why waste your time with rubbish? Everyone in the martial world knows my reputation. You can easily kill me, but if you want to ruin my reputation, dream on. What's so difficult about ruining your reputation? A man in a mask said with a loud laughter. Your wife, daughter, and those female apprentices do not look bad at all. Why don't we divide them up and make them our bitches? Mr. Yue, you are going to be very famous in the martial world indeed. The rest of the masked men all laughed out loud. The laughter was filled with evil. Yue Buchun trembled in rage. Several men in masks pushed the bunch of male and female apprentices out of the monastery. All of them had their pressure points sealed. Some had blood all over their faces, and some fell down immediately after they came out. Obviously, they had wounds on their legs or feet. Mr. Yue, the old man with the mask spoke again. You probably have somewhat figured out where we are from. We are no heroes from the righteous schools. There's really no restriction limiting what we can do or cannot do. Some of my buddies here are really fond of women. I am sure it wouldn't look too good for you if some of them offended your respectful wife and daughter. Fine. If you don't believe me, go ahead and search us. See for yourself whether we have the evil resisting sword manuscript or not, Yue Buchun croaked. I'd suggest you give it out yourself. Once we start searching one by one and get to your woman and your daughter, it's not going to be a pleasant scene, a man behind a mask said with an evil grin. All the trouble started because of me, Lin Pingzhi barked. Listen up. Our Lin family in Fujian didn't have any evil resisting sword manuscript at all. It's up to you to believe it or not. He picked up a steel cane from the ground and smacked it toward his own forehead. But since his pressure points on his arms were sealed, the smack was so weak that even though the cane hit his head, it only left a scratch on his skin with no blood coming out of it. But everyone understood his intention. He had intended to sacrifice his own life to prove that there wasn't any sword manuscript that the Huashan Sword School ever got a hold of. Good job, Lin Pingzhi. You can tell that he's brave. Young Master Lin, you are quite heroic, the old man said. The old man with the mask grinned. We are friends of your deceased father. Yue Buchun murdered your father and took possession of your family's evil-resisting sword manuscript. That's why we are here, to defend the victim against injustice. Your master has a mere name of a gentleman, but not the reality of a gentleman. I think it would be better if you submit to me as your master. I guarantee you that you will learn first-class kung fu that will enable you to sweep about in the martial world at will. My parents were murdered by Yu Canghai from the Qincheng Sword School and Mu Gaofeng. What does it have anything to do with my master? I am a proud apprentice of the Huashan Sword School. Did you expect me to incline to life instead of braving death in dangers like this? Lin Pingzhi snarled. That's right, our Huashan Sword School, Liang Fa also snarled. What about your Huashan Sword School? A masked man yelled as he swung his knife forward and chopped Liang Fa's head off. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Several Huashan apprentices screamed in terror. Many thoughts tangled in Yue Buchun's mind, but he still couldn't figure out where these men had come from. According to what the old man had just said, perhaps they were bandits from the unorthodox side, or maybe they were key figures of an evil clan. However, even if he didn't know some of the renowned masters in the region, either on the orthodox side or the unorthodox side, he would have at least heard about them. There was no clan or gang that had so many elite fighters. That man chopped off Liang Fa's head with no hesitation. The cruelty he put on display was exceptionally rare. When people engaged in fights in the martial world, it was usual that people got hurt or killed. but once one side took the other side prisoner, it was very seldom that one would cut someone's head off so carelessly. Oh, bell sounds? Poor guy. Got his head chopped off. After killing Liang Fa with a casual chop, the man laughed wildly and walked next to Madame Yue. He chopped the blood-stained knife a couple of times in the air. The blade swished by Madame Yue's head with a mere half-foot. Don't hurt my mother, Yue Lingshan screamed before losing her consciousness. Madame Yue was a brave woman and showed no fear. She actually wished that the man would kill her with a chop, thus avoiding any possible humiliation from them. So she snarled at him, "You damn coward! Go ahead and kill me, if you got any guts!" Sound of hoofbeats suddenly rose from the northeast corner. Dozens of horses galloped in their direction. "Who are they? Go check them out," the old man in the mask yelled. "Got it," two men in mask responded as they jumped on their horsebacks and dashed out. The sound of hoofbeats came closer and closer, and then came the sounds of weapons clashing into each other. "Ouch!" someone cried out. Apparently the two masked men had gotten into a battle with the people coming, and someone just got wounded. The Yue Buchun couple and all the Huashan apprentices were overwhelmed in joy, knowing that the cavalry had arrived. In the dim lights from the lanterns, they watched the 40 or so riders gallop along the main road. Mud splashed high as the group approached them. Moments later, the riders arrived and reined in their horses outside the monastery. A man on horseback shouted, "Oh, these are friends from the Huashan Sword School. Hey, isn't that Brother Yue?" Yue Buchun looked, following the origin of the voice. When his eyes stopped at the man's face, he felt greatly embarrassed. The man was none other than the one who took the Five Mountains command flag up to Mount Huashan only several days ago, the third guardian of Songshan, Crane Hands Lu Bai. The man on his right was tall and chubby. Yue Buchun recognized him. He was the second guardian of Songshan, tower-holding palm Ding Mian. And the one on his left turned out to be the expelled sword branch apprentice of the Huashan school, Fang Bu Ping. Many of the Taishan and Hengshan masters who had visited Mount Huashan several days ago were also among them, only that this time there were even more people than the last time. Under the faint light from the waterproof lanterns, shadows loomed, and in the short time, Yue Buchun had a hard time making out the rest of the people. So it was those guys from Songshan and that dude from the sword branch of the Huashan school that wanted to take over the school several days ago. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Nikki likes the tower holding palm guy. "Brother Yue," Lu Bai said, "you didn't accept the command flag from Chief Zhou the other day, and Chief Zhou was a bit upset. That's why he sent apprentice brother Ding and Tang together with me to visit Mount Huashan again with the command flag. We had no idea that we would meet you here late at night. What a surprise!" Yue Buchun kept his silence and did not reply. "So, it is Hero Ding, Hero Lu, and Hero Tang from the Songshan Sword School. What an honor to meet you," the old man in the mask said, cupping his hands. "You flatter me. May I have the honor to hear your name? Why don't you want to reveal your true identity?" The seventh guardian of Songshan, Tang Ying-E, said. "We are just a bunch of nobodies in the heterodox side," the old man in the mask replied. So they're from the heterodox side. Maybe they are from the demon cult. "If we speak out our ugly bandit nicknames, it would only be an insult to all your great masters' ears. Well, for the sake of you guys, we dare not show disrespect to Madame Yue and Miss Yue anymore. But there is this one thing we'd like you to help uphold justice." What is the matter? Why don't you tell us about it? Tang Ying suggested. Well, this Mr. Yue Buchun here has a nickname called Gentleman's Sword. We heard that he always talks about humanity, justice, and virtues, and always abide by the rules of the martial world. But what he has done recently seemed way off track. You must have heard that the Fortune Prestige Escort House in Fuzhou was wiped out, and the Chief Master Lin Zhinan couple was murdered. Yes, I heard that the Qingcheng Sword School in Shishuan did that. Tang Ying responded. The old man shook his head again and again. That sure was the story floating around in the martial world, but it wasn't the truth. Let's get to the bottom of this. Everyone knows that the Lin family of the Fortune Prestige Escort House has the evil resisting sword manuscript passed down from their ancestors, in which brilliant and profound sword art techniques were recorded. Once one masters the sword art, he would have no match in the entire world. The reason that the Lin Zhinan couple got murdered was because someone coveted the evil resisting sword manuscript. What about that? Tang Ying asked. How exactly were the Lin Zhinan couple murdered, and who did it? Outsiders wouldn't have a clue on that. We heard that this gentleman's sword secretly plotted some cunning schemes and fooled Lin Zhinan's son into becoming a dead-set apprentice of the Huashan Sword School. You see what I'm saying? The sword manuscript, of course, was brought into the Huashan School naturally. We thought about it, and came to the conclusion that Yue Buchun was adept at scheming. He couldn't get it by force, so he tried to get it by trickery. Think about it. How much experience can a young chap Lin have? After he joined the Huashan School, for sure the old fox would play him like a dummy and have him present the evil resisting sword manuscript to his master of his own will. But I am afraid that is unlikely. The Huashan Sword School has brilliant sword art techniques of its own, and Mr. Yue's divine art of Violet Twilight is also a powerful and unique kung fu in the martial world, one of the best qigong techniques, as a matter of fact. Why would he lust for sword art techniques in the other style? Tang Ying commented. The old man smirked. Hero Tang, you really are gauging the heart of a rascal with your own decent measures. What kind of brilliant sword art does Yue Buchun have? After the sword branch and the qi branch of the Huashan School broke up, the qi branch seized control of Mount Huashan. They only emphasize on working with their inner energy. Their sword skills are so ordinary and naive. People in the martial world respected the reputation of the Huashan Sword School and mistakenly thought that they actually have some true skills. But the truth is... He paused for a second with a sneer and then continued. Logically speaking, since Yue Buchun is the headmaster of the Huashan Sword School, his mastery of sword skills shouldn't have been ordinary. But you have seen with your own eyes that he was taken prisoner by us, a bunch of no-names. We used neither poison nor projectiles, and we didn't have overwhelming numbers. We relied on our true skills to take care of the Huashan Sword School masters and apprentices. We won the battle the hard way, fair and square. From that, you probably can figure out yourself how good their kung fu skills are. But of course, Yue Buchun knew his own limitation. That's why he wants to get a hold of the evil-resisting sword manuscript quickly, so he could study the great sword arts and not make a fool out of himself in critical moments, so he wouldn't be carrying a fame that's untrue. Your words are certainly convincing, Tang Ying nodded. Uh-oh, he's convincing them. Do I have a cold? Yeah, my nose is getting stuffed. It's getting cold in my room. We are just a group of nobodies. In the eyes of great masters like you, our level of kung fu skills isn't even worth a laugh. We dare not hanker after for the evil-resisting sword manuscript. However, for the last 10 years or so, thanks to Chief Master Lin of the Fortune Prestige Escort House, who actually thought we were worth something and kept sending us precious gifts, So when his escort wagons passed by our territory, none of us would touch it for the sake of a good relationship. Recently, when we heard that Chief Master Lin ended up dead and his family ruined all because of that sword art manuscript, we couldn't help but feel very irritated. It has really aroused public indignation. That's why we've decided to make Yue Buchun pay for this. He paused for a moment and cast a glance at the group still on horsebacks before continuing. All of you here who have just arrived are renowned heroes and masters in the martial world. And among you, there are also reputable senior masters from the Five Mountains Sword Alliance, to which the Huashan Sword School belongs as a member school. We here resort to your judgment on this matter, and whatever you decide, we will comply. Brother, that's very kind of you. We really appreciate it. Apprentice Brother Ling and Lu, what do you think we should do? Chief Zhou had said before that the headmaster post of the Huashan School should have belonged to Master Feng. Since Yue Buchun committed such despicable and brazen act today, we should just let Master Feng purify the Huashan Sword School himself, Ding Mian replied. Everyone on horsebacks agreed in unison. Hero Ding has judged it so fair and clear. This is the internal affair of the Huashan Sword School, so naturally the headmaster of the Huashan School himself should handle it. It would also save us from being accused of poking our noses into other people's business by fellow martial friends. Feng Buping dismounted from his horse and bowed to everyone. I am very grateful for the... Wait, what was his voice again? I am very grateful for the due respect you have shown here. Ever since Yue Buchun usurped the headmaster post of our school, cries of discontent rise all the way up to heaven, and the reputation of our school had reached its ultimate low. And now he has sunk so low to commit the many wild things, killing one's father, seizing his sword manuscript, and coercing him into becoming an apprentice. I am a man with no great virtue or abilities, and would have never been worth of the Huashan Sword School headmaster post, but I value the hardship the many past masters of the Huashan Sword School had to go through in order to uphold the reputation of our school, and I simply cannot bear to watch our Huashan School reduced to rubble in the hands of Yue Buchun, the unworthy apprentice. That's why I will have to undertake to do the difficult job as well as best as I can. Friends, will you please keep offering me advice and supervision as time goes on? He bowed again. The rain had not fully stopped and had turned into a light shower by then. 7 or 8 of the riders had lit their torches. The fire from the torches shined upon Feng Buping's face, which looked immensely contented. Yue Buchun is guilty of the most heinous crimes, which are too severe for any clemency, Feng Buping went on. We must follow the school rules and execute him on sight. Apprentice Brother Kong, go ahead and execute the traitors, the Yue Buchun couple, to purify our Huashan Sword School. Oh shit. Got it, a man in his 50s responded as he drew his blade and walked by Yue Buchun. Yue Buchun, you corrupted our school. Today is your judgment day, he grinned hideously. Yue Buchun heaved a deep sigh. I see. Your sword branch plotted this entire deadly trap so you can take over the headmaster post. Tong Buchi, if you kill me today, when your time comes, how are you going to face the many past masters of our Huashan Sword School in the underworld? He who commits such wickedness brings death upon himself. You have committed so many crimes. Even if I don't kill you, someone else will. But that wouldn't be satisfactory at all, would it? Tong Buchi smirked. Save your breath, apprentice brother Tong. Start the execution, Feng Buping yelled. Yes, Tong Buchi replied. He raised his longsword high and then retracted his elbow, getting ready for the death blow. The blazing fire from the torches illuminated onto the naked blade of the sword and painted it red and green. Hold it, Madame Yue suddenly shouted out. Where is the evil-resisting sword manuscript then? To accuse one of stealing, at least you have to show the stolen goods as evidence. Do you think you can just convince everyone by making slanderous accusations? That's right, Zhang Buqi replied. He took several steps toward Madame Yue with a wicked grin. That evil resisting sword manuscript is most likely hidden on you. I'd better do a body search so you won't accuse us of making slanderous accusations. He reached his left hand out toward Madame Yue's bosom. Madame Yue had been wounded in the legs, and 2 of her pressure points were also sealed. She watched Cong Buqi's big, ugly hand reaching toward her, yet couldn't move an inch. It would be a horrendous disgrace for her if his finger touched her skin. In tremendous despair, she shouted out loud. Apprentice Brother Ding from the Songshan Sword School. What? Ding Mian asked, not expecting a call from Madame Yue at all. Your apprentice brother Chief Zhuo is the chief of the 5 Mountain Sword Alliance and sets a good example for everyone in the martial world. Our Huashan Sword School also relies upon his leadership. How would you explain to him if you let this blatant scoundrel disgrace a woman? Madame Yue challenged. Well, Ding Mian pondered and did not answer. That crook was telling a bold lie when he said that they didn't win with overwhelming numbers, Madame Yue said. And as regards to these 2 traitors of the Huashan Sword School, if any one of them can defeat my husband on his own in a fair fight, we will give up the post of headmaster with all respects and no complaints. Otherwise, you will never get the recognition from the thousands of fellow martial people. At the last word, she spat at Cong Buqi's face all of a sudden. Since Cong Buqi was right next to her, and Madame Yue's actions took him by a complete surprise, he couldn't move out of the way in time. The spit hit him right between his eyes. Damn you! Cong Buqi curses angrily. Damn you! Listen up, you traitors. Your sword branch has only low-grade kung fu. It doesn't require my husband. Even I, a woman, can kill you as easy as flipping my hand if I hadn't fallen a prey of a plot and had my pressure points sealed, Madame Yue mocked furiously. Fine, Ding Mian made his decision. He gave his black horse a slight spur. The horse walked forward and circled behind Madame Yue, turning his horsewhip around. He bent down slightly and poked it out. The shaft of the whip jabbed at 3 different pressure points on Madame Yue's back. A shock ran through Madame Yue's body as the 2 sealed pressure points were released. As soon as Madame Yue gained control of her limbs again, she knew that She knew that Ding Mian intended to have her have a duel with Cong Buqi. The result of the duel would not only make a difference between life and death for the Yue family of 3, it would also decide the ultimate fate of the entire Huashan school. If she could defeat Cong Buqi, it probably wouldn't turn danger into safety, but at least it would be a turn for the better. If she lost the duel, then there would be no hope. She grabbed her longsword, which was knocked down earlier, off the ground and held it across her chest in a stance. But her left leg suddenly gave out on her. She almost had to kneel down on her knees. The wounds on her legs were too severe, and as soon as she tried to use her legs, she found that they lacked enough strength to support her. You said you are only a woman, and now you are pretending to have injuries with your legs. Why are we having this sword contest at all? There's no glory in beating you. Cong Buqi burst into loud laughter. Madame Yue wanted no more words from him. Here it comes, she yelled, and shot out 3 thrusts in tremendous speed. She had attached her inner strength to the blade. The sword whistled as it stabbed forward. Out of the 3 thrusts, each thrust went faster than the previous one, and all were aimed at her opponent's vital parts. Nice, Cong Buqi yelled as he took 2 steps back. Normally, Madame Yue would have charged forward immediately following the attack. But she was afraid to take any risks with her weak legs and stood still instead. Cong Buqi stepped forward again and started his own attack. 3 loud rings echoed as flickers scattered in all directions. Those were 3 vicious thrusts indeed. Madame Yue parried them one by one and immediately turned the 3rd block into an attacking stance and stabbed at the enemy's lower abdomen. Yue Buchun stood by the side and watched his wife fighting the tough opponent with wounded legs. Tong Wuqi's sword techniques appeared to be delicate and exquisite. Compared to Madame Yue's techniques, they had way more clever variations. After exchanging 10 moves or so, Madame Yue started to lose the agility and speed with her sword moves in her lower body. The Qi branch of the Huashan school was good at overcoming the enemy with resourceful inner energy, but since Madame Yue had a hard time controlling her breathing after the injuries, her sword moves gradually lost the initiative and became restricted by Tong Buqi's moves. Yue Buchun was greatly worried, and he became even more concerned when he saw his wife accelerate her techniques. The sword branch is better with their sword techniques, yet you are countering his sword techniques with your own. Countering the enemy's strong points with one's shortcomings would only lead to a defeat, he thought aloud. Madame Yue also knew the fundamental ideas here within, but because wounds on her legs were too severe, and in addition, her pressure points were sealed right after she inflicted the wounds, she was never able to tend the wounds. Even now, the wounds were still bleeding. How could she have gathered her inner energy to counter the attacks? At the moment, it was only her determination that had kept her going, and although her sword moves never slowed down, the strength in each move had started to decrease quickly. After another 10 moves or so, Tong Buqi had detected Madame Yue's weak point. While feeling much delighted, he was in no rush for a quick win and made sure he was putting up a good defense. Ling Wuchang was also watching the fight. Seeing that Tong Buqi's moves all focused on techniques, not strengths, completely different from what his master had taught him, he thought to himself, no wonder our school was divided into Qi branch and sword branch. The two branches' kung fu styles are indeed opposite of each other. He slowly struggled to get back on his feet. Reaching out around him, he found a longsword on the ground. Our school has really suffered a crushing defeat today, he thought. But I will not allow the stainless reputation of Master Wife and apprentice sister get ruined by those scoundrels. It seems that Master Wife is no match for that man. Later I will have to kill Master Wife and apprentice sister, and then cut my own throat to preserve the reputation of our school. He's gonna kill his master, wife, and apprentice before they get sexually harassed by those guys. Madame Yue's sword moves became more and more disorganized. Suddenly, she turned her sword in blazing speed and thrust it out in a loud whoosh. This was none other than the proud move of hers, unrivaled and unmatched the thrust of Ning. The thrust carried great momentum. Regardless of Madame Yue's severe injuries, it still looked utterly majestic. Tong Buqi was astounded. He leapt back in a great hurry, and luckily was able to dodge away from it. If Madame Yue's legs had been fine, and that she followed the momentum with another attack, the enemy would have no chance of surviving. But all she could do was to hold her sword like a cane to keep her balance, and wheezing like mad, her face completely pale. What's the matter, Madame Yue? Have you finally used up all your strength? Can I search you now? Tong Buqi grinned evilly as he stepped closer and closer toward Madame Yue, his left hand opening wide, high in the air. Madame Yue wanted to raise her sword and thrust forward, but it seemed as if her arm had weighed 10,000 pounds by then. She could no longer move her arm. Hold it! Ling Wuchang yelled as he walked by Madame Yue's side. Master Wife, he called out, and was ready to thrust his sword out to take away her life, thus saving her from any disgraceful humiliation. I think it's time for a break. All right. 5 minutes. And we'll see what Ling Wuchang does. It'll be very interesting. That song was called Bubble Tea, and it's a very cute video. Someone requested it. It's a big contrast to the story's mood. Yeah. Very different. Why is there a dislike every freaking time? It's me. I dislike my own videos. I just dislike all of them. Yeah. I just hate myself. That's why. Okay. Yeah. Dislikes are good too. Dislikes are uh is considered engagement. So there's really no difference between a up vote and a down vote. That's not Vietnamese or Thai. I think isn't that? Oh wait. Oh, that is Thai. I think. I don't know. Dun, 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 dun. What? I'm kidding. I don't dislike myself. Uh, do I hate you, Duck? No, I love you, Duck. I love you a lot. What do you mean? Why would I hate you? I love ducks. All right. These are really good, guys. I'm gonna eat some more. Why do I upload or start streams when you can't see them? Uh, um, yeah, it's because I love you. You need to learn when my streams start. Okay, so it looks like Madame Yue is having a hard time fighting against this dude, and Ling Huchang jumps in, right? And let's see what he does. Remember, he has no inner energy left. He has no strength left. Oh, thanks a lot, Curia. I appreciate it. I'm glad you like the videos. Good child, Madame Yue nodded, her eyes filled with satisfaction. With all her strength exhausted, she could no longer keep herself in a standing position and collapsed down onto the muddy ground. Get lost! Tong Bu-Chi yelled out while pricking his sword tip toward Ling Huchang's throat. Ling Huchang knew too well that he had no strength left with his arms. If he reached his sword out to block, his sword would instantly be knocked out of his grip. So seeing that the sword tip came toward his throat, without much thinking, he also thrust his sword toward Tong Bu-Chi's throat, a move that would end in a common ruin for both of them. His thrust was not specifically quick, but the positioning was simply dazzling. It was none other than the sword-breaking stance out of the Dugu 9 swords. Tong Bu-Chi was stunned. He had never anticipated such a sudden counterattack from the young man covered in mud. Out of desperation, he dived down to the ground and rolled till he was over 10 feet away, and finally was able to dodge the thrust. If he had come up with this solution only 1 second slower, he would not have survived it. The entire audience watched Tong Bu-Chi in such a sorry plight. By the time he leapt back onto his feet, his head, face, hands, and robes were completely covered with mud. Some couldn't help but burst into loud laughter, but after thinking about it some more, all had to agree that other than the rolling they had just seen, there was really no other way to dodge that move. Hearing the laughter, Tong Bu-Chi found himself consumed by embarrassment and fury. Holding his sword tight, he charged toward Ling Huchang in a leap. Ling Huchang had made up his mind already. I must not use any of my inner strength, and only counter him with using sword stances taught by Grand Uncle Master. Okay. So it looks like, even though he has no strength, he has no chi left, that he can use, he still can use the sword moves, right? They just have no strength in the sword moves. He was quite familiar with the Dugu 9 swords already. He wouldn't have used it so boldly against such a tough enemy. if it weren't a life-threatening situation for him. Right on the edge between life and death, he surprisingly found his head clear of all other thoughts. Instantly, all the complicated and magical techniques in the sword-breaking stance came clearly before his mind's eye. Seeing that Song Bu-chi charged at him like a mad tiger, he spotted the flaw in Song's move instantaneously. Holding his sword in a slight angle, he aimed the tip toward Song's lower stomach. When Song Bu-chi charged forward, he figured that if his opponent didn't dodge, then the opponent would have to block with his weapon. Therefore, even though his lower stomach was open to attacks, he really had no need to defend that part. But to his surprise, Ling Huchong didn't dodge and didn't block either. Only pointing his sword tip in an angle and waited for him to put his own stomach into the sword tip. Before his feet landed back on the ground while his entire body was still in midair, Song Bu-chi had realized the danger ahead. In a frantic rush, he swung his sword toward Ling Huchong's sword, but Ling Huchong had anticipated that. He raised his right arm slightly, the sword went up 2 feet, and now the sword tip pointed toward Song Bu-chi's chest. Song Bu-chi had hoped that when he swung his sword, it would smack against Ling Huchong's longsword, and then he would be able to leap aside using that force. But he had never expected his opponent to turn his sword and point it upward all of a sudden. His swing was only met by thin air, and without any other forces, he could not change the direction his body was moving toward. He screamed in terror as his body flew right at Ling Huchong's sword. Feng Buping dived forward with a jump and reached out to grab at Song Bu-chi's back, but it was already too late. With a thump, Ling Huchong's sword tip had penetrated Song Bu-chi's shoulder. Missing out on the grab, Feng Buping immediately drew his sword and slashed it at Ling Huchong's back neck. Following normal sword art principles, Ling Huchong should have jumped back quickly before returning the attack, but with all his internal energy in a state of complete chaos, which prevented him from using any bit of inner strength, he simply couldn't jump back to dodge. Having no alternative, he retrieved his sword out from Song Bu-chi's shoulders and used another technique out of the Nugu 9 swords. Stabbing his sword out with a backhand, he pointed the sword tip at Feng Buping's belly button. It looked almost as if it was another death-defying move of Ling Huchong that would end up in common ruin, but the stab had a surprising position that his sword would have pierced the enemy's belly before the enemy's weapon would ever reach him. It would only be a split of a second difference in speed, but the end results would be dramatically different. Remember, the Nugu 9 swords martial arts only has attacking, right? There's no defense. So all of these attacks are offensive attacks. He's not blocking anything, right? Yeah. The problem with these guys is they don't want to risk their own life to kill this guy, to kill Ling Huchong, right? So they keep dodging these offensive attacks. Yeah. Feng Buping could tell that the opponent had no chance of fending off his slash, but to his great surprise, the young man conveniently launched a backhand stab. Wait. Yeah. Backhand stab toward his lower abdomen. What a vicious attack that was. He quickly took several steps back. After taking in a deep breath, he charged forward again with 7 consecutive hits, each thrust or slash swifter than the previous one. The attack swept toward Ling Huchong like a storm. Ling Huchong gave no thought of life or death. All he had in mind were the various sword art techniques Feng Qingyang had taught him. Occasionally, when a snapshot of the sword moves on the rock wall in the back cave flashed by in his head, he would simply use them at will, following the essence flow of his swordplay. Within moments, the two had exchanged over 70 moves, yet their swords never collided once. Regardless of attacking or defending, all the sword art techniques shown were clever and profound. Oops, give me a second. Watching the dazzling sword fight by the side, the entire audience couldn't help but cheer inwardly. Everyone could hear the heavy panting from Ling Huchong. Clearly, he didn't have much strength in him. However, brilliant sword moves and techniques emerged one after another. from his sword with endless variations and changes. Every time when Feng Buping had difficulty countering Ling Wucheng's moves, he would simply chop and slash with sheer force, knowing that the opponent would never try to block it, and end up in a competition of strength, thus getting himself out of trouble. Seeing the display of the undignified fighting style, some bystanders couldn't help but feel discontented. A Taoist priest from the Taishan sword school spoke out. The apprentice from Qi branch has better sword skills, and the uncle master from sword branch has better inner strength. What the hell is going on? Has the Qi branch and the sword branch switched places for some fun? Oh, hey, pig dog. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm glad the videos are helpful with your studies at university. Nikki, how did you know that was a phone call? I did get a call. Yeah, I'm using my phone for the camera, for the webcam. So, yeah, if anything happens on there, it just turns off the webcam. Feng Wuping blushed at the remark as he waved his sword even faster, showering Ling Hucheng in attacks like gusty wind and heavy rain. He was the best swordsman in the sword branch of the Huashan school, and his sword skills were indeed excellent. Ling Hucheng had no extra strength to move around. It already took all his strength to simply manage to stay standing, and because of that, he missed many good opportunities to secure a win. Besides, he was not yet proficient with all the sword techniques, and fighting such a top-notch fighter with his newly learned Dugu 9 swords certainly aroused fear in his heart. As a result, the fight lasted for a long while and produced no winner. Another 30 or so moves passed. Ling Hucheng noticed that if he had simply thrust out at will, his opponent would be in a frantic rush and have a hard time dealing with it. But if he had used any of the Huashan sword school moves or moves of the Songshan, Hangshan, or Taishan schools drawn on the rock wall, Feng Buping would be able to counter well and launch his counterattack immediately after. Once, when Feng Buping drew 3 arcs at him with his long sword, his entire right arm was almost chopped off. Awfully dangerous indeed. Amid the frenzies, Feng Qingyang's words suddenly came to his mind. When you don't have a Where you don't have a sword stance, your enemy would have no way of countering it. Overcoming stances without a stance achieves the ultimate acme of sword art. That's our favorite word, acme. Actually, through the over 200 moves he exchanged with Feng Buping, he had comprehended the superb techniques of the Dugu 9 swords better and better. Regardless of how vicious or fierce Feng Buping's sword moves were, he would always be able to spot the weaknesses and flaws within Feng's moves, and a simple thrust or slash from him at will would always force Feng Buping to retract his sword to defend. After some more moves exchanged, he slowly gained his confidence. By the time he remembered the key of overcoming stances without a stance, told by Feng Qingyang, he took a long breath and thrust his sword out in an odd angle. This thrust wasn't part of any sword move, not even part of the sword moves from the sword breaking stance of the Dugu 9 swords. It was weak and tilted. Even he himself didn't know where he was pointing the sword. What kind of a move is that? Feng Buping thought to himself, confused. Not knowing how to counter that, he waved his own sword to protect his upper body. Since Ling Hucheng didn't have any limit or restriction with that thrust to start with, seeing that his opponent had guarded his upper body well, he gave a gentle shake to the sword tip and stabbed it at Feng Buping's waist. Feng Buping didn't anticipate such an odd change at all. Astounded, he leapt back 3 steps, while Ling Hucheng remained still, not having any strength to lunge after him. The fight had lasted for quite a while now. Even though Ling Hucheng didn't use a bit of his inner energy, waving the sword about did require quite some strength. Feeling exhausted, he breathed heavily while pressing his hand on his chest. Realizing that Ling Hucheng didn't follow up with the attack, Feng Buping didn't want the fight to end just like that. He sprang back and shot out 4 thrusts in a row toward Ling Hucheng's chest, stomach, waist, and shoulder. Ling Hucheng flicked his wrist and stabbed the sword toward Feng's left eye. Uttering a cry of shock, Feng Buping leapt back 3 steps again. Strange, strange. That man's sword art is very admirable. The Taoist priest from Taishan Sword School spoke again. The entire audience felt the same way. Knowing that man's sword art he admired had to be Ling Hucheng's sword art, not Feng Buping's. Feng Buping also heard the remark. He thought to himself, I am able to take over the Huashan Sword School because I am the headmaster of the sword branch. If I can't even defeat an apprentice of the Qi branch, not only would my grandiose plan to be the headmaster of Huashan Sword School burst in bubbles, I would certainly end up living a hermit's life again in some remote valley, too ashamed to face anyone in the martial world. At that thought, he cried inwardly, at this point, there's no need to hide it anymore. With a loud roar, he charged forward in an angle, slashing his longsword horizontally and then bringing it swishing down through the air in an unprecedented speed. Within only 5 moves, whistles from wind gusts had rose dimly. He waved his sword faster and faster, and the sound of the wind gusts also became louder and louder. This set of sword art was called the Quick Blizzard Sword Stance, and was created by Feng Buping while he lived in seclusion in Mount Zhongjiao for 15 years. Wow, this guy lived on a mountain for 15 years by himself. And that's how he came up with this set of moves. Each move would be even faster than the previous one, and the sound of wind gusts would be louder and louder as well. It was the most valued sword art of his. Having some lofty aspirations, he not only wanted to head the entire Huashan Sword School, but also wished to become the chief of the 5 Mountains Sword Alliance after getting the headmaster post. And this Quick Blizzard Sword Stance with 108 moves would have been the tool to help him achieve his goals. Okay, so this martial arts of his is like his trump card. And he wanted to keep it secret for a long time, right? But now he has to use it against Ling Hucheng. He really didn't want to recklessly show this special skill of his, because once it was shown, it would no longer be a secret weapon of his, and if he got into fights with elite fighters, the enemy would have had precautions, and the effect of the set of sword arts would no longer be so dramatic. But there was no way to back down from the fight right now. If he couldn't defeat Ling Hucheng, he would lose all face right at this moment. He was pretty sure he was pretty much forced into using it as the last resort. This set of quick blizzard sword stance was incredibly powerful without a doubt. The force created by the blade extended slowly. The audience could feel the cold front moving toward them, while the wind gusts blew into their faces and hands harshly, making them very uncomfortable. So everyone stepped back more and more. The circle around the 2 fighters gradually grew bigger and bigger, and soon reached the size of 50 feet in diameter. By now, even the many masters from the Songshan, Taishan, Hongshan schools and the Yue Buchun couple dared not to underestimate Feng Buping. They all felt that not only his sword moves were brilliant, but also the swift and fierce force created by his blade. He apparently didn't only rely on his sword moves to win his battles. Feng Buping wasn't a renowned master in the martial world. Who would have thought that his sword skill was so incredible? Flames from torches held by the many riders were all blown toward the outside by the forces from the blade, and the sound of wind gusts still seemed to be getting louder and louder. In the eyes of the many witnesses, Ling Hucheng was almost like a small boat traveling in a huge storm, with crashing waves hundreds of feet high. In the roaring wind, terrifying waves smashed toward the small boat like landslides, but the small boat rode the wave high and low, never being swallowed by the mountain-sized waves. The faster Feng Buping attacked, the more principles and essence of the sword art Ling Hucheng comprehended based on the teaching of Feng Qingyang. The more they fought, the better Ling Hucheng understood, and the better he was able to understand the many techniques of the sword stances, the more confident he became. He found himself in no rush to end the fight. Instead, he watched the various variations. The various variations, really. He watched the various variations in the opponent's sword moves with rapt attention. The quick blizzard sword stance was indeed very quick. Within moments, Feng Buping had used up the entire 108 moves. Seeing that it still failed to bring Ling Huchong down, he became restless with anxiety. Roaring in fury, he slashed and chopped with his longsword like a madman, intending to force the opponent to block his attacks. Ling Huchong was a bit frightened when he saw Feng Buping going all out in such a death-defying manner. Afraid to keep the fight any longer, he shook the blade of the longsword. Swoosh, 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 and swoosh. The blade had left one cut each on Feng Buping's left arm, left leg, and right leg. Clank! Feng Buping's sword fell down to the ground. Because Ling Huchong didn't have much strength with his hand, the 4 thrusts were all done quite lightly, but that was enough to turn Feng Buping's face completely pale. Fine, fine, Feng Buping murmured. He turned around and cupped his hands toward Dingmian, Liu Bai, and Tang Ying-e, the trio. 3 apprentice brothers of the Songshan Sword School, will you please tell Chief Zhuo that I am truly grateful for his great kindness, but my skills aren't good enough, and I am too ashamed. He cupped his hands again and then walked away quickly. After 10 steps or so, he suddenly stopped and called out, Young man, your sword skills are truly incredible. I bow before you, but with such outstanding sword skills, I am sure even Yue Buchun is no match for you. May I have the honor to hear your respectful name, and the name of the great master who taught you the sword art, so I know who and what sword art I had lost to. My name is Ling Huchong, Ling Huchong replied. I am the head apprentice of my respectful master, Yue Buchun. It was only because of your mercy, senior master, that I was able to win a move by sheer luck. There's nothing to be proud of. Feng Buping heaved a long sigh, his voice dreary and gloomy. Slowly he walked away, and soon faded into the darkness. Bam, kind of kicked his ass, right? The guy had nothing to say, he just left. Feng Buping heaved a long sigh, his voice, Dingmian, Liu Bai, and Tang Ying-e looked at each other, all thinking, my sword skills perhaps aren't even as good as Feng Buping's. Then, of course, I would be no match for Ling Huchong either. If we swarmed forward to attack Ling Huchong all together, it wouldn't be a difficult task to slice him into bits and pieces on the spot. But when so many masters from different schools are here as well, something like that would be completely out of the question. With the same thought in mind, the 3 nodded at each other. Nephew Ling Hu, Dingmian said in a loud voice, your sword art is brilliant and broadened everyone's horizons. Farewell for now. I am sure we'll meet again, someday. Let's go, Tang Ying-e waved his left hand and then turned his horse around. Giving the horse a good spur, he rode away like a wind. The rest of the group followed behind him, and within moments all vanished into the darkness. The sounds of hoofbeats became lighter and lighter, and soon the night was once again swept with silence. By now, other than the bunch from the Huashan Sword School, there were only those masked men left outside of the monastery. The old man in the mask let out a few wry laughs and broke the silence. Young hero Ling Hu, you have outstanding sword skills, and we all admire you, truly. Yue Buchun's kung fu skills are far from yours. You should have been the headmaster of the Huashan Sword School. He paused for a second and then continued. After seeing the brilliant sword art you have displayed, we really should have beaten a retreat in the face of difficulties. But since we have greatly offended your respectful school, it's going to be endless trouble for us. Well, we must destroy both the root and the branches. I guess we'd better take advantage of you while you are injured and take you on with overwhelming numbers then. Oh no, now they're all going to kill him. He signaled with a whistle, and the rest of the 14 masked men pushed their position forward and surrounded Ling Huchong. When Dingmian and the bunch left, they threw their torches on the ground randomly. The flames had not been extinguished yet, so only the lower portion of everybody's body was lit, and their body portion above their waists remained vague in the dark. Their weapons shined from reflections of the flames as the 15 masked men closed in on Ling Hu Chong. When Ling Hu Chong fought Feng Buping earlier, even though it didn't consume any of his inner energy, it did exhaust him and covered him with sweat. The reason he was able to defeat the first-class master of the Huashan Sword School sword branch was because he had learned the Dugu 9 swords and was able to take the initiative of the different moves. But these 15 men in mask had many different types of weapons and used many different styles of moves. When they all attacked at once, there would be no way for him to counter each one of them. Without the ability to use his inner energy, he couldn't even jump forward 3 feet or leap 5 feet sideways. How would he manage to break out from the combined attack of the 15 elite fighters? He let out a deep sigh and turned his eyes toward Yue Lingshan, knowing that this would probably be the last glance before his end, and hoping that he would get some relief from the expression on Yue Lingshan's face. Sure enough, he found Yue Lingshan's pretty eyes fixed on him, filled with worry and care. Ling Hu Chong felt a surge of joy. Then he saw her hand hang by her side, and it was holding a hand of a man. A quick glance told Ling Hu Chong that the man was none other than Lin Pingzhi. Welled with depression, Ling Hu Chong lost his will to fight completely, and almost wanted to throw down his longsword and simply let the enemy have him. Afraid of the brilliant performance he had shown during the fierce fight with Feng Buping, the 15 masked men approached forward half a step at a time, and no one dared to launch the first attack. Ling Hu Chong turned around slowly and stared at the 15 masked men. Their 30 eyes shined through the holes on their masks like the eyes of fierce wild animals, filled with cruelty and hostility. Suddenly, a thought sparked in his head. The 8 stances of the Dugu 9 swords, missile-breaking stance, can counter all types of projectiles and darts. Even if the enemy has shot thousands of arrows at me, or dozens of people shooting many kinds of projectiles and darts at me, I would be able to knock all of them down using this one stance. Let's attack all at once and cut him into shreds, the old man in the mask shouted. Having no time for any further thoughts, Ling Hu Chong sent his sword out and used the missile-breaking stance of the Dugu 9 swords. The tip of the sword vibrated as it thrust at the eyes of the 15 men. Cries in terror rose one after another, and then bangs echoed as the many kinds of weapons fell to the ground. Within a split of a second, Ling Hu Chong had blinded the 30 eyes of the 15 masked men with extraordinarily swift thrusts. Bam! He's like a master. He's like a grand master now. And he's not even using any chi. He's just using his sword. Freaking blinded these 15 dudes. Gyro says everybody gangster until Ling Hu Chong goes brr. Nice. Two hours. Are you alright? Has it been 2 hours? Oh my god, it has. Oh my god. Alright, I think we're almost done though. Almost done with this chapter. As soon as he completed the thrust, Ling Hu Chong dashed out from the crowd. Holding onto the door frame, he trembled hard, his face completely pale. Then a loud bang echoed as his sword fell out of his hand and hit the ground. He watched as the 15 masked men, each having their hands covering their eyes, blood dripping out from between their fingers. Some squatted down to the ground, some cried out loudly, some rolled back and forth in mud. When the 15 masked men all of a sudden saw only complete darkness, accompanied by excruciating pain, in astonishment and terror, all they could think of was to cover their eyes and cry in pain. If they had been able to calm down and continue with their group attack, Ling Hu Chong would for sure have been chopped into shreds. But regardless of how high one's kung fu skills are, who would be able to stay calm when someone had blinded his eyes all of a sudden? Who would be able to continue his attack toward the enemy? The 15 men stumbled about in every direction like a bunch of headless flies, not able to decide what to do next. In the critical moment, Ling Hucheng actually managed to succeed with his strike. He was overjoyed, but seeing the pitiful sight, he couldn't help but feel a mixed feeling of fear and pity. Oh, is my chi increasing, Gyro? Okay. I gotta I gotta call forth my chi and finish this chapter. Half shocked and half joyful, Yue Buchun yelled loudly, "Chong, cut their tendons in their legs so we can interrogate them slowly." Oh, damn. Yes, yes, Ling Hucheng answered and bent down to retrieve his sword. But when he used that move a moment ago, it had actually triggered the energy flow inside him. Trembling nonstop, he simply could not grab onto his longsword. Then his knees gave out completely and he collapsed. Everyone, use your right hand to pick up your weapon, and use your left hand to grab onto the waistband from the one next to you. Then follow me, the old man in the mask shouted. The other 14 masked men had been at a loss on what to do. Getting the command from the old man, all bent down to fumble on the ground. And regardless of what kind of weapon they were able to grab onto, they would pick it up. Some were able to pick up 2, and some weren't even able to find 1. Each one grabbed onto a fellow masked man's waistband and stringed himself together with the group. Following the old man, all of them staggered their way through the puddles of mud and disappeared in the pouring rain. Except for Madame Yue and Ling Hucheng, all members of the Huashan Sword School had their pressure points sealed and couldn't move an inch. Madame Yue had severe wounds on both of her legs and couldn't walk. Ling Hucheng, on the other hand, had lost all his strength and could only lie on the ground still. Everyone could clearly see that the 15 masked men had become completely defenseless, yet none could keep them from getting away. Oh, that was it! We're done. That's like 2 hours and 15 minutes. That was a long chapter. Wow. How was that, guys? How was that chapter? That was pretty good. I liked it. A lot of shit happened. So we learned that Ling Hucheng has no inner energy left. He has no chi left, unlike me, who has a lot of chi right now. He had no chi left, but he still had his sword moves, and that was enough. That was enough to just like kick the asses of these guys. Which makes you think, right? What if he did have chi? What if he did regain his chi, and he has these sword skills? Then he'd be like super powerful, right? Because these are like elite fighters. These are not just like, these are not amateurs, and he just defeated all of them. Some of the chapters were short, so this makes up for it. Totally. Totally. Oh yeah, poor Monkey 6. And there was so much sword fighting, but I didn't use my sword sound effects at all. We have this. Let's make up for it. Got some punches. And I have a sword breaking sound effect. Oh, you like that? That was sword breaking. Let's learn Chi. With Chi, he would be Super Saiyan. Totally. Alright. A shot for my man, Lu Dayo, who died mysteriously. We don't know why. Alright, guys. Wait. Let me change the camera. Alright, don't spill it. Don't spill it. Don't spill it. Cheers. Whew. Good. Oh, we're almost done. Look at that. Good job, me. I was gonna do some karaoke for you guys after the reading today, but I'm pooped. I'm tired. So maybe next time. All right. Hi guys. Thanks for joining. I hope you liked this episode. This was a good chapter. And we find the depths of Ling Hu Cheng's powers, okay? He's super awesome now. All right, good night. See you guys next week. I love you. And spread the knowledge. Bye.